Imagine walking through a dense tropical forest and suddenly encountering a bird that seems to have come directly from a work of art created by nature. Feathers that open like colorful fans, extremely long tails that float in the air, and dance rituals so elaborate that they look like carefully rehearsed choreographies. These are just some of the characteristics of the famous birds of paradise. Found mainly in the tropical forests of New Guinea and in nearby regions of Indonesia and Australia, these birds became known around the world for their extraordinary plumages and for the impressive courtship rituals performed by the males to win over the females, which in some species occur in such an admirable and impressive way that they do not even seem real. And it is thinking exactly about this that we gathered a list with some of them to present in today's video. Greater bird of paradise. The greater bird of paradise is one of the best-known species in this entire family, and also one of the most impressive when it comes to display. The male has long yellow ornamental feathers that extend from the flanks and form a true golden mantle around the body. During the breeding season, several males usually gather in specific areas of the trees known as leks to perform their displays, and there each individual opens its feathers, leans the body forward, and begins a series of movements and calls, trying to attract the attention of the females that watch carefully, a behavior that, together with the long feathers and vibrant colors of this species, turns this scene into a true natural spectacle in the forest canopy. King of Saxony bird of paradise. Among all birds of paradise, few possess ornaments as curious as the king of Saxony bird of paradise. This is because the males of this species display two extremely long feathers that emerge from the back of the head and can exceed the length of the bird's own body. These feathers are covered with small plate-like structures that resemble a sequence of tiny flags along a thread, and during courtship, the male moves these structures while emitting sharp calls, creating a rather unusual visual spectacle. In this way, even though it is relatively small, this species draws attention precisely because of this unique detail, which makes it one of the most curious and easily recognizable birds among all birds of paradise. Magnificent riflebird. Unlike many species that display long tails or extravagant filaments, the magnificent riflebird impresses mainly because of the intense shine of its plumage, considering that the males of this species possess velvety black feathers, combined with areas of extremely iridescent bluish-green coloration on the throat and chest. During the display, the male partially opens the wings, lifts the chest, and tilts the head to highlight these bright colors even more, which create vibrant reflections that change when the light hits these feathers according to the movement of the body, generating a metallic effect that contrasts perfectly with the deep black color of the rest of its feathers. "12-wired bird of paradise." Among the many curious forms that evolution has produced in birds of paradise, few are as peculiar as the thin filaments that gave the 12-wired bird of paradise its name. This is because the males of this species possess 12 modified feathers that project backward from the lower region of the back, forming flexible wires that resemble delicate ornamental cables, and during the breeding season, these structures are used in a rather unusual way. This happens because the males approach the females and gently pass these filaments over their bodies while performing movements and vocalizations in a direct interaction that is part of a highly specialized courtship ritual, which combines these unique wires with striking plumage in shades of yellow and black, generating one of the most curious displays among all existing species of birds of paradise. Splendid astrapia. In the mountainous forests of New Guinea lives a bird whose elegance is not limited only to extravagant feathers spread through the air, but also to the shape of its body. This is the splendid astrapia, a bird that has dark plumage with iridescent reflections that vary between green, blue, violet, and orange depending on how the light strikes it, and that draws attention and is well known because of its long tail, composed of narrow feathers that can exceed the length of the rest of the body, and that follow the movement of the bird's body like ribbons floating behind it while it moves among the high branches of the forest. King bird of paradise. Small in size but extremely impressive in appearance, the king bird of paradise shows that smaller species are not always the least spectacular. The male has a body mainly in shades of white and intense red, contrasting with green, blue, and black areas. However, another curious detail of its appearance is found in its tail, which has two elongated feathers that end in circular structures that resemble small decorative spirals. During displays, the males usually move quickly among low branches while lifting the chest and moving their ornamental feathers in a very dynamic way, which makes that, even with their small size, they can still enchant in a surprising way, not only the females, but also anyone who has the fortunate opportunity to encounter one of these fantastic birds out there. Blue bird of paradise. Among all birds of paradise, few display a color combination as striking as the blue bird of paradise. The male has a black head with small white spots around the eyes, while the rest of its body is accompanied by an impressive set of broad and soft black and blue feathers that in the tail region form a true lateral fan that can be expanded during display, creating a unique silhouette among all species of this family. This distinctive tail is the most striking feature of the males of this species and includes two long and thin central feathers that extend beyond the rest of the plumage, allowing that, during the breeding season, they position themselves on exposed branches in the mountainous forests of New Guinea and perform an extraordinary sequence of movements accompanied by vocalizations to try to attract the females. Short-tailed paradigalla. While many birds of paradise display long tails or extravagant feathers, the short-tailed paradigalla follows a rather different path. This is because, in addition to not having a very long tail when compared with many other birds of paradise, it also has a body covered with shiny black feathers that reflect the light with a slight bluish tone, creating a relatively discreet, yet still quite elegant appearance. However, the most unusual detail of this species is found on its face, considering that in the region between the beak and the eyes, there is an area of bare skin with an intense yellow and blue coloration, which contrasts strongly with its dark plumage and becomes even more colorful and evident during social interactions and courtship rituals. Wilson's bird of paradise. On some islands of Indonesia, close to the region of New Guinea, lives one of the most extraordinary birds of paradise ever recorded, the Wilson's bird of paradise, which has such an unusual appearance that many people find it hard to believe that it is real. The male displays a combination of extremely vivid colors, including black, brown, and intense red across large parts of the body, areas of yellow and green distributed along the back and the nape region, and a bright turquoise blue skin on the top of the head that also has the particularly curious detail of having no feathers. Before starting his courtship dance, the male usually carefully cleans the place where he will perform, removing leaves and small debris from the forest floor. Then he performs a sequence of rapid movements, jumps, and changes of position while displaying his colorful plumage and ornamented tail, creating a visual spectacle that is among the most complex courtship behaviors known among birds. Ribbon-tailed astrapia. Imagine a bird crossing the air with two extremely long white ribbons floating behind its body. This is one of the most striking images associated with the ribbon-tailed astrapia. The male of this species has two central tail feathers that can exceed several times the length of its own body, forming long narrow extensions that move gently with each movement among the branches, while the rest of the plumage displays dark tones with iridescent reflections that vary between green and violet depending on the light. And as one might imagine, during the breeding season, the males perform displays in more open areas of the treetops, alternating positions and movements that make this tail sway in an elegant and showy way. Western parotia. Among all birds of paradise, few have developed a dance display as elaborate as the western parotia. The male carefully prepares a small space on the forest floor or on a wide branch before beginning the performance, and so when a female approaches, he opens the lateral feathers of the body, forming a kind of dark skirt, and begins to perform rapid and extremely precise movements around her, at the same time that small ornamental plumes on the head rise, creating a rather unusual appearance. This dance may include spins, short jumps, and changes of position that seem almost choreographed, resulting in one of the most complex courtship displays ever observed among all existing birds, and that serves as a strong demonstration of the extraordinary level of specialization of these species. Pale-billed sicklebill. As we have already seen in many cases so far, the most curious element of a bird of paradise is not always found in its feathers, and in the case of the pale-billed sicklebill, the detail that attracts the most attention is precisely its bill, which is long, curved, and pale in color, especially adapted to allow the bird to reach food among flowers and structures of vegetation in the treetops. In addition, although it is not its most striking characteristic, the male also has ornamental feathers that extend from the chest and the neck region, creating an elegant appearance during the display process in which he usually positions himself on elevated branches and performs rhythmic movements while highlighting these feathers in front of the female. Black sicklebill. With a relatively large body and an imposing silhouette, the black sicklebill is one of the most impressive species that can be observed in the canopies of the forests of New Guinea. The male has predominantly dark plumage, but in reality, this discreet appearance hides a visual spectacle that emerges during the display, when the male positions himself on elevated branches and moves his body in a rhythmic way with the intention of impressing a female. This happens because when he opens the ornamental feathers of the chest and the flanks, he reveals elongated and shiny structures that reflect metallic blue tones under the light, which together with his long and curved bill, complete the elegant appearance of the species, generating a spectacular presentation that combines posture, shine, and movement in a true natural spectacle. Standardwing bird of paradise. Commonly known as the standardwing bird of paradise, this is one of the most unusual species in the entire birds of paradise family, and this happens because its main ornament is not on the head or on the tail, but on the wings. The male has an overall plumage in shades of olive brown, green, yellow, and white, and speaking of white color, its most famous feature is precisely two pairs of long white plumes that emerge from the wing joint region and can be raised or lowered during the courtship process to try to impress females, and when they are raised, they stand out above the bird's back, giving it a striking appearance that is visually very different from all other birds of paradise species. Red bird of paradise. An intense contrast of colors defines the appearance of the red bird of paradise. The male displays a body in shades of black, yellow, green, and reddish-brown, combined with two extremely long feathers in the tail region and long ornamental feathers of bright red coloration that project from the flanks. And when opened during the display, they form a kind of vibrant fan that stands out against the green background of the tropical forest. During the breeding season, the males usually gather in specific areas of the trees to perform their collective displays, opening their feathers and executing repetitive movements while emitting characteristic calls, so that this mixture of strong colors and ritualized behavior transforms each display into a true natural spectacle. Wahnes' parotia. Among all birds of paradise capable of transforming their own appearance in a surprising way during courtship, the Wahnes' parotia is certainly one of the best examples of this. The male has dark plumage with iridescent reflections and a series of ornamental plumes that emerge from the head region, forming delicate filaments that project sideways like small threads. And when he begins his display in front of the female, he opens the lateral feathers of the body and performs a dance composed of rapid and controlled movements, with short jumps, changes of position, and spins being elements that are part of this elaborate display, which transforms the small space of the branch or the forest floor into a true performance stage. Stephanie's astrapia. Another bird of paradise that has a long and elegant tail and that holds a special place in this aspect is Stephanie's astrapia. This is because the male displays two extremely elongated central feathers that can greatly exceed the length of the body and that extend like long dark threads that follow each movement of the bird among the branches of the trees, while the plumage of the rest of the body, in turn, also follows practically the same dark pattern of the tail, but with the detail of presenting iridescent reflections in the region of the head and the throat that vary between shades of green, blue, and violet when struck by light. Magnificent bird of paradise. In some birds of paradise, the moment of display transforms the appearance of the animal so dramatically that it becomes almost unrecognizable, and this is exactly the case of the magnificent bird of paradise. The male has a relatively small body, but adorned with intense colors that include shades of red, yellow, green, brown, and black on the chest and back region, while its legs and tail feathers display bluish colors. However, the true spectacle happens during the moment of courtship, and as he opens his ornamental feathers and positions his body in a specific way in front of the female, the males of this species completely transform their own silhouette, which together with rapid movements, short jumps, and carefully executed posture changes make this presentation a true natural spectacle and explain why this species is considered one of the most fascinating within the group of birds of paradise. Carola's parotia. Amid the canopies of the mountainous forests of New Guinea, a small clearing can turn into a true stage when the male of the Carola's parotia begins his performance. Even before the female appears, he usually carefully prepares the area, removing leaves and small debris to leave the space clean, and when the display begins, he opens his feathers, forming a kind of dark skirt around the body, and then starts to execute a sequence of rapid and precise steps, spinning around the females in a complex dance that transforms the courtship ritual into a surprising spectacle. Vogelkop lophorina. Few birds can alter their own appearance as dramatically as the Vogelkop lophorina during the courtship ritual. This species has an exceptionally low population of females, and the competition among males for partners is extremely intense. This has led the species to develop one of the most elaborate courtship displays in the bird world. After carefully preparing a dance floor in the forest, the male begins trying to attract a female with a loud call. In this way, as soon as a curious female approaches, he completely alters his appearance so that his feathers rise and spread widely and symmetrically around his head, instantly transforming the frontal view of the male into a spectacular ellipse-shaped creature, while at the same time he rhythmically snaps his tail feathers against each other in a way similar to a finger snap, while jumping in frantic circles around this female. But what about you? Which bird of paradise was the most surprising and fantastic on this list? Share it with us there in the comments. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.